Hello, and welcome to another episode of Ask an Assistant, the podcast for executive assistants and the people that love us. I'm your host, Jess Lindgren. Let's get to work. This week's question comes from esteemed colleague Ray, who asks, "Hi, Jess. It's February 2025, and things have been tough in my industry. Several companies have gone through rounds of layoffs, and I was just informed that my last day will be at the end of Q1. I'm grateful for the notice and the severance package I'm receiving, but I've been in my current role for over 5 years, and job hunting these days is so daunting. Do you have any job search tips for me?" Dearest Ray, normally I would say that I love this question, but in this instance, I don't love this question. First, I am so sorry and so sad to hear that you're losing your job. And so many people that I know are finding themselves in similar shoes, whether it's with the federal government here in the United States, in the tech sector, higher education, nonprofits, publicly traded companies that are taking a beating in the stock market. I can't confidently speak to how things might be outside of the US, but the overall global feeling seems to be that things are not great. All of that being said, I do have some ideas, but I have been with my current executive for over a decade. We just started year 12 this month in March 2025. And while I do keep my resume up to date, I haven't personally had the need or desire to look for a new job in over a decade. And I truly hope that my current executive is my last executive and that I won't be job hunting anytime ever. All of that being said, here are my job hunting tips and thoughts at a high level. First, I really like to recommend that you take some time off if you can. Next thing that you're going to need to do is find community to commiserate and or celebrate with. I really like to recommend that people work with a recruiter if they can. This one seems a little silly, but put your story up on LinkedIn. Put your story up on LinkedIn. That's what I meant to say there. And lastly, just apply, apply, apply. So getting down into the weeds of those subject headers, taking some time off if you can. When I quit my last in-office executive role, executive assistant, I was not the executive, I was the executive assistant. When I quit my last in-office EA role, I gave a few months notice. I ended full-time employment with them at the end of 2013 and was fortunate enough to keep them on as a client, working part-time hours for full-time compensation as a contractor at the beginning of 2014. I will tell that story in a little more detail one of these days, but let's just say that it was really awesome and a huge luxury to be able to just relax before throwing myself into job hunting. I was also at the time starting a business that turned into a very successful venture, Gal Friday 612, in its first iteration. Um, yeah, again, we'll talk more about that down the line. I was also very fortunate and privileged to have my then boyfriend, now husband, owning the home that we lived in. Lots of caveats here, but really, if there's any time that you can take off, please do. If you're leaving a stressful or toxic environment, you need what I like to call a corporate detox. If you're leaving a happy environment where you really loved your work, you loved your team, you loved your executive, you loved your company, you still need a bit of time to unwind from the daily grind of a full-time job. Like, take as much time off as you can afford and move on to step two from there. Step two, of course, being find community to commiserate and or celebrate with. Um, I have found the one time that I was fired from a job, it's really hard talking with friends who are still employed, who've never been fired or laid off, or who aren't presently job hunting. It's just hard. Like, people, depending on their situation, if they've never been fired, it's hard to commiserate. If you've only been laid off and not fired, that's a different kind of job loss. If you are unemployed and your friends are happily and gainfully employed, it's really challenging. And just on top of that, I almost never talk about work with my friends. Um, some super basic surface level stuff like, oh, yeah, let's get lunch between our busy slate of meetings, or welcome home from your long string of work travel. Where'd you go most recently? One of my friends and neighbors is constantly on the road and goes out of the country at least once a quarter, and she always brings us back a souvenir, and it's so much fun and so cool. But like other than that, I honestly don't even know what company they work at. Like I know that they're in HR, I know that they travel. I don't know what company it is. I don't know exactly what their role is. But it's always fun when it's like, oh, so and so's back and they brought us a treat. Feels very, very cool, especially being close enough that they're thinking of us when they're on a work trip. My goodness. But other than that, I don't know what most of my friends do, what companies they're at, what departments or roles they're in. Like, there are just so many more important and fun things to talk about with my friends, family, and neighbors. And work is never going to be super high on that list. Like, there are certainly things, and I'm sure many of us here in the executive assistant sphere can relate to our skills as executive assistants transferring very easily into real life, as it were. Different topic for a different day. We're going to put a pin in that. But other than that, like, nobody is, oh, hey, Joe, can you sell me some software today? Like, nobody's doing that. Um, I have personally always prided myself on being a person who is available to talk about anything. But as I've gotten older, I have come to realize just how important it is to have someone who gets it to talk about whatever it is. In this specific case, being laid off, possibly unemployed for a while. Like I said a couple minutes ago, it's really hard when your friends and family and cowork, other people around you, like it would be really challenging to reach out to your work friends who weren't affected by the layoff and get commiseration with them. They might celebrate with you once you land at your new role, but while you're job hunting, they're still working and maybe stressed that they're going to lose their job, or keeping their nose down so they don't lose their job. Like, it just, having people who are in the same boat as you is really, really important. It's a place that I've only been once. I was unfortunately let go from a role, and this would have been like 2008-ish, maybe 2009, during what I did not know at the time would become to known as the Great Recession. It would become to known as the Great Recession. And I was not paying super close attention to politics or the world at large. Um, it was just something, I thought it was really hard to find a job then, and I didn't know why. I was just like, I'm super skilled, I'm super capable. Why is this so challenging? And I remember it was really hard being the only person in my friend group who was in that boat. Um, if people have never been there, they've never been laid off, they've never been fired, they've never been let go from a role, they've never been unemployed for a stretch, it's hard for them to get it and really be able to talk with you about how it really feels, what you're going through. Um, there are groups out there on just about any platform that you might like to spend time: Facebook, Reddit, LinkedIn. There are certainly paid private communities. The one that I like to spend time in is Jeremy Burroughs' community, the leader assistant community. There is a very active LinkedIn page and a very active circle community that you can be part of there. I am also working to establish community through Patreon and Substack. So if that's something that you'd like to spend some time, um, I can commiserate from afar, but I don't have recent experience. And especially finding yourself a group of people who are going through it right now. Job search trends change constantly. And so the last time I was actively looking for employment was over 10 years ago. Things have changed a lot since then. Being able to chat with people who are going through the same situation right now of being on the job hunt, being unemployed, people who can give you tips, or maybe like, hey, this role fits 60% of what I'm looking for, but this sounds like a role for Ray. People who can just kind of be looking out for each other. I think that's really important and helpful. And especially like as you get interviews, people to pump you up and be like, yeah, you got this. People to commiserate when we went with an internal candidate, we went with somebody else, like somebody who really gets it and is going through it at the same time. And then when you do land that full time, that new role, having those folks to celebrate with you, it's just so important. Keeping your morale up during the process and celebrating wins along the way. I definitely like to recommend that people work with a recruiter. It's been a long time since I've done any temping, like that 2008, 2009 stretch might have been the last time that I was doing any temp work. Things have changed a lot since then. But I do know that boutique staffing firms for executive assistants exist. Like you can look, I don't have personal experience with these places, but the one that comes to mind is the Pocketbook Agency. I've seen them post on LinkedIn quite a bit. There's also a company based in, I want to say California, and I think they have a branch in New York called the Help Company, I think. So those are places that are placing people into roles like personal assistant, executive assistant, estate managers, that kind of thing. Um, Roles where executive assistant skills are very transferable. So even if a general staffing agency might be geared more toward like your resume has to pass their AI screening bot or whatever nonsense. I just remember that staffing agencies, recruiting firms, what have you, used to be a lot more personalizable, personable. I'm not sure what the right, more high touch, like way more. You could come in, interview. I remember recording really awkward videos back in the late 2000s, before it was really commonplace, before people really had video and cell phone cameras, before we all did our own social media posting and had our own YouTube channels and stuff. Like, I remember it was so awkward filming this video about like why I, as a temp, want to work at your yet to be named company. Um, so yeah, a lot of things have changed since the late 2000s. A lot of things have changed since the Great Recession. A lot of things have changed just in the last couple of years. So working with somebody like a recruiter who knows what different clients are looking for, who knows what the industries are looking for, um, it just any kind of leg up that you might have, I think is very valuable. um, Recruiters recognize a good recruiter, mind you, recognizes the value of a good executive assistant and can put you out in front of the right prospective employers. In my again, very outdated experience, a recruiter hopefully is still free for you to utilize, but they do take a chunk of the money that you would have made as a salary or hourly employee. So, like, if the company that's looking for an EA is paying the staffing firm $50 an hour, you would be very lucky to get 25 an hour. So there definitely is a cost, opportunity cost, an indirect cost, if you will. But the recruiter, hopefully, if they're good, they are doing the bulk of the work to match you with the best prospective employers and getting you out there. Whereas if you were hunting down these companies yourself and applying and hoping for an interview, you might not ever even get seen. So your mileage is definitely going to vary in this arena. And yeah, but it just, again, it's like working in Hollywood and having a talent agency or a manager. Like, those people have relationships that they can utilize. And yes, they take 10%. Um, if you're um, Angelina Jolie's agent and you take 10% of her $10 million acting salary, you hopefully did a lot of work behind the scenes to make your 10% worth it. A recruiter, again, will take a much higher percentage, but hopefully should be free for you to utilize and at least be getting out on some interviews. The next thing I'd like to recommend, maybe a little unconventional, maybe a little like gives you the ick, makes your skin crawl, because it certainly does for me. Put your story up on LinkedIn. I personally don't spend all that much time on LinkedIn, but when I do, I am always amazed by the stories of people who are out of work that show up right at the top of my feed through like a tenuous friend of a friend of a friend, like a third degree connection that has thousands, maybe tens of thousands of, I don't know what LinkedIn call it, upvotes, thumbs up, whatever, likes. Um, it has tons of reactions to it, and hundreds, if not thousands of comments, maybe even some job offers in the comments. Like, I am always completely blown away by the things that make it to the top of my feed. Um, if you have a compelling story, like if you can write a compelling story. The most recent one that I saw just a couple days ago was written by a person who knew this couple and supposedly, I mean, I didn't like fact check this. I didn't call the guy. I didn't track down the couple and say, is this really your story? But this friend had written about his two friends, a man and a woman who had just been engaged, and saying about how, oh, the man was let go from blah, 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 and the woman was let go from blah, blah, blah. And they just got engaged. And instead of planning their wedding, their noses to the grindstone job hunt, grindstone, noses to the grindstone job hunting. This should be the happiest time of their life. Instead, it's the most stressful time of their life. Like, writing it up on LinkedIn can be surprisingly, I guess, viral. I really don't like that term, but like today in 2025, getting tens of thousands of reactions, hundreds and thousands of comments, like it can garner a surprising amount of attention. And LinkedIn is a place that a lot of companies, they exclusively post their jobs on LinkedIn. They exclusively use it instead of a job board or having a careers page on their website. You know, there are a lot of benefits to LinkedIn, and write your story up, give it a whirl. You just never know. Um, the last thing I'm going to say is apply, apply, apply. Like, applying for a new job needs to become your new full time job. I do not envy one single person who is pounding the pavement looking for work these days. And it's not even pounding the pavement, it's scouring job boards, it's scrolling on LinkedIn, it's working any kind of connection that you might have to get any kind of leg up. Nobody accepts physical applications these days. I mean, now that I've said that, I'm sure there's going to be 100 people who pop out of the ground and say, actually, you know, many places no longer accept a paper application. They don't accept you walking in and saying, hello, I would like one job, please. You have to go through their LinkedIn page, their career page, their job board, their in-house recruiter, whatever it is. I do not envy anyone who is out there looking for work these days. It is grueling work. Sometimes it is very soul destroying, demoralizing work, and it is always extremely time consuming work. Under the rules of capitalism, I heard this. I am a big You're Wrong About listener, especially the early stuff when it was still Sarah and Mike. This phrase just sticks in my brain. I think it was Sarah who said this, but under the rules of capitalism, you either have too much money or not enough. Like, truly, and way too many of us fall into the not enough category. Um, that's about where the You're Wrong About quote ends. Um, in the United States, your healthcare is often tied to your job. If you live in a place like New York City, your commuter benefits, like your Metro card, your rail pass, might be tied to your employment. There are so many things. You might be a single parent with a mortgage, with an apartment rent, with children. Like, everybody's situation is different, but we all need work. And job hunting, it just, at the end of the day, it's mandatory for a lot of us. And you have to treat it like a full time role now that you are no longer in a full time role. Especially for Ray, the question asker, our esteemed colleague from this week, who has a little bit of time before full time employment runs out, who has a little bit of a severance coming their way. You've got notice, but the job hunt is looming. Dust off that resume, pay somebody to go over it with a fine tooth comb, especially if it's been years since you've had to do it, and brace yourself for the work. One bonus thing that I did not talk about earlier is I have heard that in 2024 and now in 2025 that interviewing is an absolute beast. Like multiple rounds, ridiculous hoops to jump through, and especially in the EA world, prospective employers are asking you to create quote unquote sample work. I have heard horror stories of people who are out job hunting being asked to go on like 7 rounds of interviews, and if you are still gainfully employed, can you take 7 days off to go meet different levels of the company for coffee and meet at their office and get away with that? No, you cannot. And if you're unemployed, like, do you really want your hopes getting up by going, "Well, now I'm at round 2, now I'm at round 3, now I'm at round 6, now I'm at round 7. They must really like me," only to get let down? Like, that is absurd. I have also seen creating slide decks, presentations, travel itineraries, and other tasks that are clearly going to be used after the interview. And then they tell you that you didn't get it. Like, going into job hunting in 2025, get crystal clear about A, what you are willing to do. Like, if a place tells you up front, "Oh, this is gonna be a 15-round interview, and you're gonna have to meet with everyone from the receptionist to the CEO in varying terms," like, what? What company has time for that? Like, that is such a weird use of everyone's time. I have heard too that, like, there are certain companies, if your company is small, if you've got like 50 people and the CEO needs to sign off on every single hire, fine, I get it. If you work in like a 2,000 person company and you're hiring like 10 people a week, your CEO has time to meet with 10 different people to shake their hand and make small talk and give the okay. Give me a break. Absolutely not. So, you, as the person who is seeking new gainful employment, get crystal clear with the person who is scheduling these interviews with you. What is this time involvement going to look like? What are you looking for here? Also get crystal clear about what you are willing to accept in terms of hiring. Like, if the client site is a 30-minute drive or bus ride or commute in some other way, shape, or form, are you willing to invest 2 hours a day, an hour travel time, and an hour of interview time? Are you willing to do that? If they leave you with homework after the interview, are you willing to do that for free? I'm not. Like, what? I am absolutely floored by the audacity of these companies, and especially when they're bringing multiple people in, supposedly, when they end up going with an internal candidate, and when they are just wasting your time and getting free work out of you. Like, that is horrible. I call BS. Like, absolutely not. Ugh. Like, I don't know how any of you are doing it and not reading these companies for filth. Like, just tearing them apart, name and shame, and don't let this garbage continue because it's terrible. Um, Leaving everything on a little bit of a ranty note here at the end. That's all for today. Ray, I hope my thoughts on job hunting are helpful. Please take some time off to recharge and mourn the loss of your role. Like, that is a drag. And again, I am so sorry that that's happening to you. Even if you can take one day, that is something that's valuable, that's worth it. Sleep in, eat your favorite meal, take a bath, take a yoga class, whatever it is that you like to do to take care of your mental and physical health. Take that time off. If you can afford to take a chunk of time off between roles before you start job hunting, great. If you can commit to 1 hour a day of job hunting, and then you're going to focus on your physical and or mental and or like home health. Like, I know working a full-time job, it's just me and my husband that live in the fun house here in upstate New York. I do a load of laundry almost every day. It's 2 people. What is going on? Basically, we go through a lot of clothes. We work out. You wear 2 outfits every day. We change bedding frequently. We change towels frequently, at least once a week. We don't use like paper towels and stuff in our kitchen. We have everything is washable and reusable, and that stuff adds up. Catching up on your chores and not having to worry about work, like whatever it is that you need to focus on, take a little time off. If you can take a chunk at the beginning, go for it. If you take like 1 day a week while you job hunt, awesome. If you take sporadic days off whenever you can afford it, whenever it lines up, whenever you need it. Job hunting is such hard work, and it can be super taxing on your mental and physical health. Let me know how the job hunt goes and where you land. I am so hopeful that it is firmly on your feet and in short order. And until next week, take care.